Okay, and I got the email right that you sent me about the name list of this group. So before I go through the forecasting, so let's do cost view because today I will post the case study number one for you. Right. Everyone, please go to using the Google and you type cost view. Yeah, let's see here. Cost view, COURSEVILLE. Okay, and then you select the register. Okay. You type in cost view, and once you go to cost view, as I mentioned, that you need to have like a Facebook account. And I'm gonna add everyone into the cost view, okay? And once you type in cost view and you enter to the cost view, you select the menu register, right? Register. For the register, you need to type in the cost number, right? In this case, our cost number is 2602546. The semester 2018/2 because our second semester from the academic year 2018, and institution is Chulalongkorn University. Okay, and you need to pass once you see our course, in order to request me to accept you into this course on course view, you need the password. The password is OM. The little one, OM. Okay. Just typing cost view on Google, and when you go to cost view, click register, and the cost number is 2602546. 2018/2 for the semester. Chulalongkorn University for the institution, and the password for this course is OM. Let's see, no one coming yet. One, yes, we have the first one already, Pitikon. I will accept you.
ยังไงวะ
Right. I have just Pitikon only. Here's the one. Okay, because I already request the case study from Harvard, so I'm gonna post probably tonight or tomorrow morning. So you need to forming the group on cost view. Okay, let me check. Yeah, we have another two. Okay, Caroline. Okay, so I'm waiting around 5 minutes. So take your time.
ต้องสะกดไทยด้วยทำไมวะ You click here. I have blah blah blah. I do not have blah 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 blah. Got it. Ay ay ay.
มันให้เลือกได้ป่ะต้องหาของที่เป็นรีจิสเตอร์
You are 2018 of 2.
Okay, let me see. We have another 5 here.
แก้แล้ว
Search for courses.
เนี่ยเดี๋ยว
ของ
ขึ้นมา
เรา
ทำไมอ่ะ
เป็นนิติกรรม
อยากให้
Enter course password.
You know the password?
He just told you. OM.
Yeah.
Gosh, Jay.
You need to form in the group on CourseView. This is student roster. For now, we have 11 students. And you need to setting up the group based on the name list that you just emailed me yesterday. And I'm gonna post the case study. Okay, he's not responded yet from the office, so maybe tomorrow. And also the question from the case study on CourseView. So you just click at the assignment and download. Okay, the question also gonna provide on CourseView. Okay, let me check. Yeah, we have another seat. Okay, never mind. So some of your friends already did it, so you can do it anytime during my teaching today. So I'm gonna back to accept your okay. And so as I mentioned last time that last time I showed you about the CourseView already, right? Right? Not yet. Not yet.
I don't think
Okay. Okay, let's see. Okay, I have another 7. Okay, I will talk about CourseView so that you can know because you need to submit the case study on CourseView. Okay. For example, let's say that okay, I have like the this is the OM class of MBA exec of last semester. For the CourseView, something like this. I'm gonna post like the course syllabus, the question for the case study, okay, midterm score, and this another program for you. And we will have like the assignment. We're gonna show about the case study, also the term project in this case. So it's gonna have the due date and the date that I post. Okay, so if it is not reached the due date yet, it's gonna show the green color. Okay, and when you go to submit it, right? Let's say, yeah, I can check that. Okay, you submit it on time or late. Okay, and there are 3 ways to submit your work on CourseView, but I usually allow just or only one option. That would be you have like a file upload to the CourseView. Okay, so the case that you typing on CourseView directly, I will not allow, right? So this is the case. For example, I will show that okay, I can download, right? There's have question. They show about the calculation, the name list. So it depends. You can do anything here. Okay, and also you need to form in a group. Right? You can create a group. Okay, create a group. Right? And when you submit, I'm gonna setting up the folder for the case study and set it to submit as a group. Okay. I'm sorry, we have another thing. So it's difficult. It's not difficult. Okay, so you can try to play with this. Okay. So by tomorrow, I just come to check on the assignment. I will post the case study and also the question from the case study. The due date for submitted is next week we study Tuesday, right? Midnight of Monday. Okay, midnight of Monday. And you need to submit online. If you submit late, you can still submit, but it's gonna show the red color for me, so I know that you are late. Okay, that's all. I have the short form and just better form getting a fever. So I'm sorry if I. Okay, let's talk to the topic for today. The focusing is going to be the chapter that you're going to use to do the case study. Okay, we're going to talk about the focusing today, and once we finish, I'll let you go. But I'm not that okay much. Okay, here. For the forecasting, this is a calculation chapter. Okay, so why do we need to study forecasting? Because when you try to operate your organization, your business, the first information that you have to have is about demand. If you have no idea about the demand, right, you cannot go further for the capacity, you cannot go further for the inventory, or even though things about the way to manage about the layout, right, of your shop floor or something like that. So the forecasting is about, we try to forecast actually about the demand of the existing product in this case. So I will starting with the introduction. What is forecasting, the feature of the forecasting, and element of the good forecast. So what is a forecasting? So actually, if I ask you guys that, okay, what is forecasting? So your answer is about something that we try to predict about the future event. But the answer is yes. So we don't know about the future. Forecast is about, we're talking about make a prediction about the future. So it's uncertainty, right? Because it's not happened yet. It's in the future. So the forecast that's why it's very difficult, because we don't know about the future. Right? We don't know about the future. And for the context of OM, we try to using the information, okay, from the past and at the present to predict, right, the future. And in the context of OM, the forecasting we use for forecasting about the demand of the existing product of our organization, or the demand for the customer who can use of our service. Okay. We are not talking about forecasting the new product that is not happened yet, or the new one that we're gonna launch. Right now, in our class, we talk about forecast the demand of the customer to our existing product that we have, the product that we sell, or the service that we provide to the customer, something like that. We use the forecasting because the information from forecast or the demand information we can use to managing a lot of aspect of the decision in organization. For example, finance. If you are in the finance department, right, the forecasting is quite the major task of finance, because you need to forecasting about the budget, you need to forecasting about the sale, right? So this is information that's quite important, right? Human resources, we using the demand in order to managing about the people or the workforce of our organization. We're gonna hiring the new one, or we have to shortening by layout the existing one, right? The marketing thing as well. If we know about the demand, we can we forecast and we know about the demand. We can know about the strategy for the marketing that we can develop. Okay. For example, if you have the high demand, very high demand, what happens? If you have very high demand, generally in the marketing side, if you're using the pricing to play with the high demand, you're setting up price getting higher, right? Have high demand, price getting higher. if you have the low demand, you need to reduce the price, right? Because you try to motivate a customer to buy more by reducing the price, something like that. Right? MIS is about the database, right? Everything that you made the forecasting you should store as a database. Right? Operation is include everything, inventory, layout, qualities, and including about the demand also affect to the design of product and service. Why the product and service design we need information from the forecasting of demand? This is because you can see that especially for the automobile industry, you can see that every car have their models prolonged just 5 years, and they need to have like a minor change, something like that. Because the demand tells something that if you are not doing something with the design, the customer gonna pay attention less and less and less. So the demand or the forecasting tell you that okay, this is a time that you need to do something to increasing the demand back right to the level that you want. So you change the design, you make something adding more features, something like that. Okay, and this is the one that I mentioned, right? When we talk about the forecasting, we need to have the time horizon of forecasting. Okay. For the forecasting, normally we have three time horizons, right? Short range, medium range, and long range. For sure that if you make the shorter forecasting, it's getting the better accuracy result. If you're getting long forecast, the accuracy is quite low. Right? The long range forecast much more go about 3+ years. This is the forecasting dealing with the something that you need to make like the big commitment, right? For example, the forecast using for the facility location, right? Because you try to look at okay in the future what you're gonna do for extending your capacity or looking the new location. So this is quite long range forecast because we have the something that very big, right? That if you make decision that and then you cannot change. If you change, you're gonna pay a lot, right? Such as land or location, or even though you launch the new product. But for the medium range is range about less than 3 years. Is involved much about the sale and production planning or budgeting. And for the short range, this is we see a lot, right? This is up to 1 year or less than 1 year. This is about the forecasting of the purchasing or the workforce level. And for sure that short term, right? Normally we have too many methodology more than the long term, and the accuracy is better than long term, right? But for long term and also the medium range is used a lot for the planning and about the strategy of the organization. But for the short term, we're using like for the operating for every day. Right? And in the case of the example of the forecast, we have a lot of type of the forecasting, but as I mentioned at the beginning that in our OM class, we're focusing on the demand forecasting. We are not talking about the economic forecasting, we are not talking about the technological forecasting. We look at just only the demand forecasting or the forecast of sale of the existing products. And for sure that for the forecasting is help you a lot when you try to formulate the strategy, right? For example, the capacity. The capacity is quite important in terms of OM. Right? We have our objective is to have enough capacity or more capacity than the demand that's gonna happen. Right? So if you have no idea about the demand, so you don't know how can you plan for the capacity. If you can know or you plan, you forecasting about the demand. Okay, you have the demand information, then you can use S1 to manage or plan for the capacity. Right? That's same as human resources, right? Hiring, training, layoff of the workers or the sale is depend on the demand that you forecast. We're gonna see that right now we have a lot of industry that change right, based on the demand change, right? Especially actually, and for example, in the education industry. Right? So other universities, let's say the private university, they have the impact of the lower number of students. Right? Even though the state university as well, right? Chulalongkorn as well in some faculties, right? But we are not have much more effect much. But for some university, especially for the private university, they have an effect of the aging society, the effect of the trend of the generation of the student that they don't want to continue study or they prefer to have like the e-learning or study by themselves via online or watching about the free courses online, something like that. So that's change, right? And that okay, it affects about the human resources, right? Professors and including about the staff in the university change. Right? For example, for our school, within my department, okay, I opened the positioning of the faculties, right, for strategy and international business, let's say. There are several interesting people, right, from outside that want to be the faculty here, right? They apply, and majority of them is come from the other university. They already be the professor from that outside university, private university that they want to apply for the position within our school. The reason is that maybe because they have something change in their university because demand change or that make the policy or the strategy of the university change. Right? So it's affect a lot, right, for the forecasting. If you know about the demand and when you plan for the workforce is something that always happen in the real world. And yes, we try to forecast in the future, okay? And since this is about the future, it's difficult, so the results can be random. And for sure that if you try to compare between group and individuals, which one you think is more accurate? Group or individual? Which one is more accurate? Yes, group, right? Because group is like mass, right? But for individual, you specific, right? So the specific is much more difficult. Right? So if you try to focusing about the demand, number of customers who gonna buy your product, you are not specific your product, but just generally for your product, generally, is have the chance of accuracy better than the way that you try to estimate or forecast the number of customers who gonna buy your product type A1, something like that. Because when you're looking for the result based on the individual, it's difficult. Right? And for sure that if the time horizon is quite long, the accuracy is decreasing. Right? And how about the technique? Right? Most of the technique, normally they assume that everything is stable or static. Right? But actually in the real world, no. It's about dynamic. Right? But we cannot analyze based on the dynamics thing, So that's why all the method that we're gonna study today is about the basic. They have there's one assumption that we assume that all the factor is stable or something like that. And also, how about the good forecast? What would be the element that we can say that this is the part of the good forecasting. Timely is very important. What's about the timely? Timely is mean that even though you try to have the more accuracy for your forecast, but you have no time to develop the strategy or no time, not enough time to use that information. This is not worth anything. So my point is that timely is mean that you need to have enough time to use the result from the forecasting to develop your strategy or to make the decision. If you don't have enough time to use the result of the forecasting to make the decision or to develop the strategy, it's worth nothing, right? Even though your forecasting result is very good. Okay, reliable, you know that. Okay, we prefer, right, the forecast that have more reliable, the accurate, for sure, high accurate is better. Meaningful, okay, this is interesting. It means that when I talk about, let's think about the forecasting about the demand. It doesn't mean that we talk about the number of units that that customer gonna buy. You can talk about the volume. You can talk about the percentage that increasing from last year. So it's a lot of things that you can use it as a unit to making the forecast, not just the simple one. Right? Meaningful is mean as you are the management of the organization, that you are the user of the forecast information. You need to think that, okay, which unit or which measurement that is meaningful for you to use for make the forecasting, right? So for me, for example, sometimes you make the forecasting about the number of customers. Sometimes you make the forecasting about the percentage of the customer that increasing, right? Maybe the accuracy is better than the first one. Sometimes you make the forecasting about the value of the sale. You forecast the sale. Sometimes you forecast about the number of units that you sold. It's different, right? So it depends, right? Good trend is mean that once you make the forecasting, everything that you have done, so you need to record, right? And easy to use is better. Right, it doesn't. If you have something that quite complex, it's not good because it's difficult to use. And okay, that would be the all introduction, right? About generally about the forecasting, about the demand. So let's talk about on the OM side. Right now, we know that we're talking about the demand forecasting. So this is the thing that you need to make a decision or design the system before you forecast. The first one is about design what to forecast, the level of aggregation and unit of measurement. The unit I just mentioned already as a meaningful, but the level of aggregation is mean about the group or individual, right? You're gonna forecast overall your product, or you're gonna forecast just one of your product line, or you're gonna forecast just one model of your product. So it depends, right? And then you're choosing the typing of type of the forecasting method. Okay? And the system of the process of forecasting just follow like this. Okay. First is about determine the purpose of forecast. We need to understand that, okay, what we're gonna forecast right now. And then you're setting up about the time horizon. The interval of the time that you're gonna make forecast. 1 year, 5 years, 2 years. And then you select the forecasting technique. It depends on your data. It depends on your preference. Right? But one thing that's very important, because when we doing a forecasting, it come along with the data analysis. Because sometimes the data that we have is doesn't the perfect data. Sometimes you need to analyze and cleaning the data. Sometimes you don't have perfect that you have all the data that you have, but sometimes you missing, you have the missing data. What you gonna do about that missing data? You're gonna use the error rate for that missing data, or you're gonna use the node for that missing data. Right? You need to make the decision, something like that. So sometimes we call the data analysis, or we do like the data mining, something like that. And then you make the forecast, right? And when you finish, okay, we try to monitor about the result of the forecast, right? So this is quite the process. But for our class, okay, we are not talking all of this by doing all of them, right? Because we believe that, okay, cleaning and analyze data is only in the step part or in the course of the data analysis part. So we're gonna talk just only the technique that we can use as the basic for demand forecasting. Okay, so the technique that we're gonna talk today is consists of two approaches. The first process is about the qualitative method. For the qualitative, it means there is no calculation, there is less numerical data. So it's usually much more involved about intuition, involved about your instinct, involved about your experience and your guess. So we normally use the qualitative method in the case that you try to, forecast something that you never done it before, such as the new product that you never done it before, but you're gonna launch a new product, but you need to estimate the demand of that new product. Right? So in the level is come from, the management talk together, right? Make the decision based on the experience in the past, based on that, okay, all the assumption, and they expect that what is gonna be for that demand, something like that. But another way is involved about quantitative method. For quantitative method, yes, the name is already shown, but it's about the calculation. You need to, using about the historical data, using about the numerical data, do the calculation. Okay, it's involved about mathematical technique. This is usually suitable for the case of existing product and the current technology that you have. So in this case, you can see in our class, we're going to pay attention a lot for the quantitative, because the qualitative is based on experience. So if you are the CEO that have experience 40 years, so you do better than another person that have experience just 5 years, because you have a lot. But for us, we focusing on the quantitative, right? So we're gonna study the technique, right? Do the calculation, something like that, for the forecasting, and you're gonna use it for the case study. So it includes about two types of the forecast: judgmental and time series for the quantitative. Judgmental is about the forecasting that you're using the opinion, right, from the stakeholder that involved. For example, the opinion from the consumer, the opinion from the sale, opinion from the executive, something like that. Right? So sometimes we can think it's as a qualitative, but on another way, when we try to divide the forecasting into the different type, we also call it judgmental method. Right? So it's qualitative plus time series analysis that would be quantitative. Okay. For the time series, is have the concept of everything that used to happen or occur in the past is gonna occur again in the future. It's just like the pattern. Right? And the last one is about the associative models, right? So you can think about ligation. That would be the using like the variable that we call explanatory variable to predict the future. Or I can say that, okay, use X to predict Y, something like that. Okay. So let's talk about the judgmental. For the judgmental, okay, we have, okay, 4 techniques. Executive opinion, so this is one that I mentioned, qualitative, right? Salesforce, consumer survey, and Delphi method. Right? So let's talk about the first one, executive opinion. For the executive opinion, it's about the high level, right, of the management team, right? They try to working together and make the estimation, right? By combining with the managerial experience of them and the statistical model. Right? It's quite real quick, but one thing that we need to be careful about the executive opinion, that would be about the good thing disadvantage. What is the good thing problem? The good thing problem is something that you have one person that dominates others. So let's say that, okay, right now we have like the board meetings, right? And the one that, let's say, we call CEO, right? The big boss, right? The big boss have the opinion. Right? So the good thing problem gonna occur when the big boss have the opinion, but others have no dare to disagree with the CEO opinions. Right. So sometimes, in the meetings, right, CEO said, okay, I think it's going to be like this. Do you have any problem? No, you're a boss. Right? Okay, you want to do that, something like that. So this is kind of a good thing problem because sometimes it doesn't come from, the working together in that meeting, right, to generate, right, the estimation of something. But sometimes it comes from one person that dominates others. So sometimes we need to be careful about that. So in this case, sometimes they try to not directly tell about the opinion in the meeting, but they're using like the post-its or note, right? And then you collect all the opinion from all the members, and then make the conclusion later, something like that. Okay. And another one is about the Salesforce opinion. This is quite the another thing is interesting because you try to estimate the demand from the one that I would say that very close to the customer, that would be the sale. So you estimate the demand from sale. You come to act with the salesperson. So the good thing is that salesperson, normally they're known what customer want, they're known a lot about the customer, they're close to the customer. And you can combine from the different districts, right? And different level to be the big, information about the demand. But one problem that usually happen about the Salesforce opinion is that optimistic too much. Because there is no way that the sale, when you come to ask them, they're gonna tell you something bad. Because it's gonna affect about, the budget in the future, the percentage that they're gonna getting about the commission in the future, or others factor that they can getting from the company. Right, because so this is the problem that might be happen from the Salesforce opinion, but it's still qualitative. Another one is about, okay, this time we are not asking for sale, but we will asking directly to the consumer who gonna use our products. Right? So we do like the consumer survey. So we ask directly with the consumer. Yes, the good thing is that you are directly asked with your target group, right? But sometimes, are you sure that the answer that comes from that consumer, they're gonna tell you the truth, what they think inside? Actually, maybe it depends on the culture as well. For example, in Thailand, right? In Thailand, sometimes you ask your friend, let's say that okay, you ask your friend directly. Sometimes the answer from your friend maybe it's not the one that thinks that your friend thinks, because they consider you. They try to don't want you don't want to hurt you or something like that. So and sometimes consumer just answer yes to getting like the gimmick or getting getting some promotion, something like that. Okay, so it's difficult, right? Hard to say that information that you get is the correct one. So we have another one we call the reply method. This method we call as a consensus method that consists of 3 targeted participants, right? Start to doing the survey, construct the survey, and the respondent, the group of the people that who you think is this group is the people who can make a valuable judgment, right, for you, right? So they're gonna make the comments, and then we're gonna have another group we call the group of decision maker, because based on the comment of the respondents, they're gonna combine and reconstruct and sending to the staff to survey, develop the new survey again, and the respondents gonna see what others comment from the first time, and then try to make the comment for the second time. Let's say that can be different from the first one. So it's just like it's consensus. Just like you have three persons to be the respondents, that you have the different opinion. But the first round, each of them know the rest of what the things, what are the rest things. Right? So maybe they can change or they can think the same way, something like that. So it depends on the questionnaire that's gonna doing change based on the opinion of the respondent. And finally, once the process is going on, the decision maker, they're gonna make the decision based on the result of the comment from the respondent. That's gonna be the same direction for all the respondents. So it's just like it doesn't happen in the normal way, right? Because if you have more respondents, you can have more different opinions. Right? You're gonna do more iterative round to getting the consensus comments, and then the decision maker is gonna make it. But anyway, all this, right? As I mentioned, this is not right. This is not the quantitative, right? That will be the part that we're going to pay attention and focus in our class. For our class, we're going to do quantitative things. So let's start with the time series forecasting. So as I mentioned before, that time series concept is come from that, okay, all the things that used to happen in the past will be happen again in the future. So it's involved all the pattern that's gonna be happen again. So before we study the several techniques of the time series forecasting, let's start with the several basic patterns of the time series. So the first one is horizontal. This is the type of pattern that we have the fluctuation of the data around the mean, right? It's like that on the horizontal. Right? And the trend, we see a lot about the trend. Trend is about the systematic increase and also decrease of the series of the data over the time. Seasonal is about the repetition, the repeatable of the pattern, right? Increase or decrease, right? Of the time, right? Maybe day, weeks, month, or season. Cyclical is quite the same as seasonal, but it's longer, so more than 1 year. Irregular variation, this is the one that we don't want to have it. This is about the unusual circumstance, unexpected, pattern. For example, you have the dot-com crash, crisis of the hamburger, or 9/11, something like that, tsunami, something like that. So that you have some crisis or some situation that happened. So then the demand is crash. And random is the general one that is about the variation that's usually happen. So this is the picture to show each of the pattern. Horizontal trend, this is an uptrend, that trend increase and uptrend. Seasonal and cyclical. Cyclical is just like you can think about the economic crisis that's gonna happen every 10 years, something like that. So every cycle is more than 1 year, but seasonal is based on within 1 year. And this is the variation, right? Irregular variation, and also it occur when you have the trend, cycle, and seasonal variation. Anyway, we have the several techniques of the time series that we can study today. The first one is about the naive approach, and then we're gonna talk about the technique for average, that including about the moving average, weighted moving average, and exponential smoothing. And after that, we're gonna talk about the technique that we're gonna use for the case that the data have a trend. And lastly, technique for the seasonal of data. Let's talk about the first one, the naive approach. The naive is quite simple, right? So for example, if we sold 250 wheel last week, so now next week, we should sell 250. If I said that, okay, yesterday I can sell the product 200 units, how about today? What do you think? If you need to forecast 200 units. Because the naive forecast is come from the concept of, right, the forecasting value will be equal to the previous actual value. So naive is quite simple, in real fast, because it's just using the actual value from the previous period to be the forecasting value for the next period, right? So it's no cost, it's quick, easy, no data analysis, and very easily to understand, simple to use. But how about the accuracy? Maybe not that time, right? Let's think about, we're talking about using the naive forecast in the case of stock price. What happened? Is yesterday is stock price, let's say, I don't know. How about today? How about tomorrow? So change a lot. But it's a good method that we can use as the base for the reference. And since naive is using the concept of the forecasting value for the next period will be equal to the actual value from the previous one. So it doesn't mean that you are not consider other things. Because if I said, let's say that I have something like this. I cannot see it. Yes. If I show you something like this, if I have the information of demand, January, February, March, April, May. Let's say we have the demand here. January is 32, February is 34, right? March is 36, let's say. How about April? If you're using the naive approach. If you're using the concept that I just told you, maybe you think it's 36, right? But it doesn't make sense. Why? Because if you look at the pattern in the past, it's starting from 32 and it's come up to 34 and then go to 36, right? So this period, if you're using the naive, actually it should be 36 plus 2, right? Or 38, right? Because we're looking like the trend, adding from the previous actual value. So my point is that it doesn't mean that, okay, naive is going to be equal to the actual value from the previous one only. No, it depends on the data in the past as well. If you have the data just like the trend, so why not be equal to trend? Right? So it's sometimes you can let's say here for the stable, yes, okay, I forgot to mention F is for forecasting value, A is the actual value, this is T is mean at time T minus 1. So for example, T is Tuesday, T minus 1 is Monday, something like that. So if you have no any variation such as trend or seasonal, why not be using the actual value from the previous one? It's okay. But if you have the seasonal variation, what happened? For example, if I try to estimate the demand or let's say the passenger or Thai people who are gonna taking the bus at Mo Chit on Songkran festival this year, this coming April. You're gonna use the information for the passenger on March, or you can use the information from the passenger on last year at April. Should be the second way, right? Because we know that Songkran festival have like the high season, right? Of the Thai people who are living in the other province that they're gonna back home, and they use like the bus to back home, right? So they have like the seasonal. So if they have a seasonal, it depends on that. What about the period that you're gonna go back to getting to collect as a seasonal? In this case, should be last year. But for the trend, just the example that I showed you. So maybe you just consider just trend from 2 consecutive previous period is okay, right? So using the actual value from time T minus 1 plus the trend that's usually occur, right? So this is a naive, very simple, very easy, right? Normally my exam, I gonna provide you about the set of the data and I ask you to forecast something. You're free to select the method, but I'm gonna ask you to explain why you select that method. Please do not use naive. In the past, we have like the student that I provide you have like the 6 column, right, about the data for each month, and let you to make the forecasting and ask which method they can use and why, and let forecast to show that student using I'm gonna use naive. So it means there is no calculation at all. They just copy the previous one. The reason is that I have no time to do the exam, so I select naive, something like that. So please do not using naive. Okay, so I need you to do some calculation that say that you understand or not, right? And how about before we go to the next techniques, that have more calculation. One thing that you need to know, right, because we can use this at the end of the forecasting technique. This is about the forecasting error. Forecasting error is about the difference value from actual minus forecasting value. Error at any time t will be equal to the actual value of any time t minus future forecasting value. So error term equal to the actual minus forecast. Okay. Error for period t will be equal to the forecasting value of period t minus the forecasting value of period t. We can use this one later after we talk about the method of forecasting. Okay, the next one is the moving average. Moving average is quite simple. You know it already, actually, and I believe. This is about the technique that we use a lot to smoothing the data. Right? We're using the moving average to average the data. Right? So the concept is that we just, starting from the current one of the data and get back to some end period and make the average of all the data. Right? So often it's used for smoothing the data, right? And is suitable for the data that has no trend. Why? Because if you use the forecasting of moving average with the data that have the trend, it means that it's gonna decreasing trend effect. Because when you try to average something, it's gonna decreasing the value. Okay. So for example, let's say that you using n equal to 3 days. Right? So 3-day moving average is going to be the actual data from the current days plus actual data from the previous day plus the actual data from the previous 2 days. For example, I will show you here. Let's say that I have, right, I want to find the moving average of 3 days. Right? I have the data of Monday, demand equal to 20. Tuesday is, let's say, 30. Wednesday is about 32. Okay, if I try to find the moving average of 3 days, this can be equal to 32 plus 30 plus 20, or divided by 3, something like that. Right? So, moving average is that starting with the current one that you have, right? And get back to the period that you want to average. So the key is that, so how many period that you're going to average? So it depends on the user, right? For us, I need to specific for you. 5-day moving average, 5-month moving average, 2-week moving average, something like that. And your job is that, okay, if you know about the period, length of the period that you're going to average, you're just using the actual value, right? Correct, right? And up to that length of that period and make average. Right? And you can see that for the moving average, actually, right, if you increasing, what happened? Let's see here. Look at this graph. The actual one is this one, purple one. This is an actual value. This is like a, let's say, 3-day moving average. This is a 5-day moving average. So you can see that if you're increasing the number of period to average, the data is more smooth. So if you change from 5-day moving average to be, let's say, 10-day moving average, what do you expect? The data, if you plot in the graph, is just like the line, the linear line. There's no effect of the fluctuation. So if you have more period to average, the data is more smoother. Right? So it depends on the user that you're going to use. But from the real concept, it depends on the data. Normally, we try to look at the peak to peak data and use that period divided by 2 to be the appropriate period to make an average. But generally, in practical, we have a lot of set of moving average that we can use. For example, if you try to average for 1 week, you can using 5-day moving average because we are not including for the weekend. 2 weeks you can using 10 day, but other can using why not I using 7, why not I using 14. You can use, right? So it depends on the user, right? So we have a lot of concept, but anyway, for our class, it's depends on me to specific to let you to do it for you. Okay. And this is an example. Let's say that I have, the data of the medical clinic patient right here. I have the information from the first 3 weeks. First week, we have the patient arrived 400. The second week, 380. The third one, 411. Right now, right, we would like to forecasting the number of the patient arrived for the week number 4. What you gonna do? If I using 3 weeks moving average, so we just using 411 plus 380 plus 400 and all divided by 3, right? With the result. But if I say that the actual number for week 4 actually is 415, what is the forecasting error? What you gonna do? We're just using the actual value 415, right? Minus the value that you just forecast. For example, here. Okay, the first one, we try to make the forecast on week 4. We don't need this one yet. We have these 3 information: 400, 380, 411. Using 3 week moving average. So then, using 411 plus 380 plus 400 all divided by 3, you have 337, 397. This is the forecasting value, the result of 3 weeks moving average. Next, suppose that the actual value of week 4 is 415. What is the forecasting error for week 4? I just showed you that the forecasting error is using actual value minus forecast value, right? So forecasting error at week 4 is going to be actual value at week 4 minus forecasting value at week 4. So actual value at week 4 is 415. Forecasting value at week 4, we just did it, is 397. So using 415 minus 397, so then you have 18. This is the forecasting error for week 4. What if I want to forecast the level for week 5 using 3 week moving average? If I try to estimate a level for week 5 using 3 week moving average, I'm going to use the actual value for week 4 plus week 3 plus week 2 all divided by 3, right? So the result is going to be 415 plus 411 plus 380 all divided by 3. So we have 402. This is the forecasting value for week 5 by using 3 week moving average. And this is the data, the data of the actual. Okay, so the moving average that I just show you, right? We call simple moving average actually. You can see that the concept is that you just make, summation of the actual data back to the period that you want, and then you make the average. That concept, you giving the weight for each period equally. So there is something that changed because another concept is emerged, because if you're using moving average, the previous one, it means that you give the importance for the data equally, right? In the past equally. For example, I try to forecast the data for next month. I give the importance of data for this month and last month on the last 2 months equally. But sometimes it is not. So then they're gonna have another method of moving rate we call weighted moving average. This method, right, changed a little bit from the first one. It changed by giving or put more weight, right, to the more, current rate data. Right. The current data should have more weight than the later data, right? So in this case, right, the concept is that the weight should have summation equal to 1 or 100 actually. Right. It depends that you're gonna have to give the weight back to 1 period or 2 period or 2 period. It depends on the user. But the total weight equal to 1. And the current one should have the highest weight. Right? And this concept is mean that all the data less important. Right? This is the one that's suitable in the case that you have the trend. So you see it's different from the first one because the first one moving rate and said that it's suitable for data that have no trend, right? Because you average equally. If you're using estimate for the data that have the trend, it's gonna reducing the trend. But if you have the data that have trend, you should use this one, weighted moving average, because all the data usually less important. You pay more information, important information for the very current one, right? But anyway, there is no rule about the weight. It depends on the intuition and it's very subjective, right? It depends on the user. Right? So in this case, the formula is that, okay, the forecasting value for the time for the period 3 plus 1 will be equal to, this is the demand. Demand at period 3 multiplied with weight for the period, the first period. And plus weight, the second weight, multiplied with demand for the period 3 minus 1, and so on, right? So this one is can show you in this example is more easier to understand. Let's talk that, okay, I have this following customer arrival again. And you can see that in this case, we have the data for 4 months, okay, for the customer arrival, okay. Let's say that I'm going to using the weighted moving rate, right? For sure that if I want to test you about the weighted moving rate, I will specify the weight for you. Okay. But in this case, let's say that I prefer to have the highest weight equal to 50% or 0.5 to the very current information. And the next one is 30% or 0.3, and the last one is 0.2. So we have information, right, for 4 months. This is the actual value. If I would like to using the weighted moving average to forecast month number 5 for the customer arrival using the weight 0.5, 0.3, 0.2. So you can easily calculate by using 0.5 as the first weight, right? Multiply with the very current data. That would be the week month number 4, 790 plus what? Plus weight 0.3, right? Multiply with the next actual data is about 810 here, and plus 0.2 multiplied with 740. So you have 786. This is the forecasting for month number 5. Use the weighted rate 0.5, 0.3, 0.2. Again, if we suppose that the actual demand for month number 5 is 805, so what would be the forecasting value for month number 6 using the same way? It's going to be forecasting for month number 6 equal to 0.5, right? Multiply with the actual value of month number 5, that would be 805, plus 0.3, multiply with the next period is 790, plus 0.2 multiply with 810. So you can see that for the weighted moving rate, just using the highest weight for the very current one, right? And then it's gonna follow consecutively back to the latest period that you wanna calculate, right? So this is the weighted moving average. Okay, let's talk about this one, and I'm gonna have a look. Right? The next one we call exponential smoothing. Exponential smoothing is the method that we can say another method of weighted moving average concept. Because exponential smoothing again is giving the most lessons data have the highest predictive value. It means giving a lot of weight to the highest weight to the previous to the current one, and this is the one that's using a lot, right? Exponential smoothing. It's different from the weighted moving average because weighted moving average you can for the previous example, you can see that weighted moving average we have 3 weights, right? But for the exponential smoothing, this is no. You're using the current one and giving the highest predictive value to them. And if you look at the formula, you can see that forecast demand for period t plus 1 will be equal to the forecast value for period t plus alpha multiplied with actual period t minus forecast period t. So actually this is the forecasting error, right? So something like that, you try to forecast period 3 plus 1. You're using your forecasting on period t plus some value multiplied with the forecasting error. Alpha, this is the one that we call the feedback value. It's range from 0 to 1. Range from 0 to 1. And if you look carefully here, if alpha equal to 1, what happened? If alpha equal to 1, what happened? It's naive method, right? If alpha equal to 1, you can have ft plus at minus ft, right? This one disappears. So you can have ft plus 1 equal to at, right? If alpha equal to 1, this is a naive method. So normally we're gonna have the subjective selective value for alpha, right, from range of 0 to 1. So it can be 0.4, 0.7. This depends on the user. But you can see that exponential smoothing, we're using the forecasting from the previous period and plus percent feedback of the forecasting error. Right. So let's show you about the example here, and then we're gonna have a break. Here, this one. Let's talk about that. I'm using the example of medical clinic again. If you still remember, we have information about 3 weeks. Right. This is a customer patient hour. Let's say that I'm using alpha equal to 0.1, and I would like to using the method of exponential smoothing to forecast the number of arrival of patient on week 4. What we gonna do? Okay, if I'm gonna do this based on this formula, it should be F4, right? Equal to alpha multiplied A3, right? Minus F3 plus F3, right? The problem is that, okay, A3, we know that is 411, right? A3 is the actual value on week 3, the third week. But F3 is what? Why in this case, F3 are using 390, what do you think?
Average of week 1.
Yeah, correctly. I know when week 1 and week 2. But, okay, in this case, F3 are using 390. Just like your friend said, 390 is come from average the first 2 weeks. But it doesn't mean this is the best way to do. My point is that when you apply exponential smoothing, you can see in this case you try to find F4, right? You need to have F3. You need to have like the starting value. But in this case, since I have first 2 weeks, so the starting value for me F3 is just okay, just average. But you can using other method to be the starting value. You can say that okay, I'm not using average, I'm going to using naive. F3 are using 280. You correct. It's okay. Okay. So it depends on your starting. Okay. You can using several method or several concept. But once you have the first starting point, the next value or the next period that you're going to calculate using exponential smoothing, you need to using this value, this formula, right? Okay. But in this case, it makes sense that okay, forecasting for period 3, you have first 2 weeks, these two values, so the third one should average. Right. But for me, I said, okay, the first one is little, the second is little, maybe it's not average, maybe I'm using 360. Why not? I can use. Okay, so it depends. And this case, okay, we have the 390.1, so let's say I think it's the typo. So the forecasting error for week 4, actually, we can apply actual value for week 4, math forecast for week 4. In the case, so you can have 450 minus 392.1. Actually, you can have 22.9. But I'm just rounding up, right? Just rounding up. And how about the forecast for week 5? Again, in this case, you try to find F5, going to be the alpha, right? Multiply F4 minus F4 plus F4. Right? So that's why you're using 392.1 for F4 and A4, or actually you at week 4 you're using 415. So this is the exponential smoothing. Okay. So after this point, the technique that we studied so far, we talk about quantitative techniques. We started with naive, okay? Naive is using the actual value from the previous period. Next, we talk about the moving average. And we just think the average value from the length of the period that you want. And then you have the weighted moving average, right? Just assign the weight. It depends on the user, but the highest weight should be is based on the current data and then so on backward. And this is exponential smoothing. We're going to have a break here, and once you come back from the break, we will starting with the technique for trend and seasonal. Okay, and that's it. Okay, so let's have a break.